The Garnet Old Show, no inside info, no contacts, no problem. Happy Thursday, everyone. It's been a long work week. It's been a long day of updates from the legal and contract standpoint, and we will have the one and only Doug Rohan joining us later on the show about 15 to 20 minutes from now. I'm Ryan, that's Vince, and we're here to bring you all the latest, greatest, and depending on how you read into things, you're either encouraged, discouraged, or none of the above. And we'll give you our takes here in just a minute. But before we get started, I want to point out, hit the like and subscribe button. Hit the join button if you want to become a YouTube member. And for those of you who are a YouTube member, thank you for supporting the Garnet Old Show. It might be a busier show because we have, obviously it being a pretty popular topic. It could end up being a little bit busier than usual. If you want to make sure your comment gets read, use the super chat function. And we'd love to get your comment read by Doug when he comes on. So start storing them up. Want to get to people in the chat. Breeze Fry joining us. Very good evening from Breeze Fry. Finally getting it right, first try. No, not bragging or anything, Vince. But how are you today?
Yeah, you kind of skipped over me there because we got to get the commercials done. I am live from Captain Black Fishing Studios North. Ryan is live from Captain Black Fishing Studios Central. Captain Black is the sole proprietor of the charter fishing operation in Panama City Beach, Florida. And if you're looking for some charter fishing opportunities, give him a call. I've never done it. I need to do it. And Ryan, have we talked about this? Have you done it before?
Not with Captain Jack, but I've been charter boat fishing for mahi before off the coast of West Palm Beach.
Yeah, so I imagine it's a great time. So I'm going to do it at some point, and you should too. And if you do, please let him know that Garnet and Old pointed you in his direction. And so I think that would be a good time. As Ryan said, today has been absolutely crazy, which is very different than what the last couple of weeks have been. Ryan and I have been lamenting in the background kind of about, man, it's really kind of tough around these parts. It's kind of quiet. People aren't really that excited. The basketball team keeps, kind of stepping all over themselves, although the women's team is winning pretty big tonight, I think. So there wasn't really much, but we knew people that this February 2025 thing was coming. And yesterday, Ryan, when I posted the thumbnail for the show, kind of ahead of the game, because
you knew it, yeah.
We knew, and I got a message from Doug, basically saying, what's going to happen is as soon as you post this thing, something's going to pop. And sure enough, today is the day. And we're going to talk about, like you said, what that really entails and what we should all take away from that. And by the way, Ryan, you've said this before, I've said this before. You and I are consumers of a bunch of shows.
Mm-hmm.
We do it for a number of reasons. First of all, we love pretty much all the content that's out there. It helps us, right? But also it encourages us and gives us ideas on the ways to kind of tweak our own show. That camaraderie is awesome. Mm-hmm. Every show today was about this. Every college football show today was about this. And so I knew that there would be quite the audience for tonight. So if you watched any shows, if you watched Peek Around the Corner today, if you watched Kuz's Corner today, if you watch any of those shows, and I watched as
Vince's
many
Corner
today. What's that?
Yeah, Vince's Corner.
Vince's Corner, yeah. It's been fun today, and everybody's got their thoughts on it. So we want to hear everybody else's thoughts tonight as well.
So we'll get into the comments here in a little bit because I have a feeling Vince and I might be on two different perspectives on this issue because there's a lot of reading between the lines that you have to do on this issue. And when comes on to answer an earlier question in the chat, yes, Doug will be here live here in the next 20 minutes or so.
Yeah.
So stick around. He will give his legal expertise, right? But we're here to entertain and to give our opinions. So Vince, I'm going to start it off.
Oh, you're going to go right to it. You're not going to bury the lead. You're going to get right to it, which I love. Let's do it.
Yeah. It was announced today that the thing that we've all been waiting for, whether this would go one way or the other, happened where ESPN announced that they would be renewing and extending the contract for a live broadcast for the ACC through 2036. So that was important because if they had not done it, there would have been a lot easier way for us to get out of the conference, and the argument would be clear, right? So they did it. That shows one thing. I do agree with most of the opinions out there that, listen, if you're an ACC fan, I don't know, God, why you would be one, but if you are an ACC fan, it does provide stability. I mean, if nothing else, the contract guarantees the ACC will continue to crawl along. However, it's clear to me, Vince. Now, it's not official. I'm not saying this. This was inferred. It was commented on. It's not official, but it's my opinion that this will end in Florida State and Clemson remaining in the ACC through 2032 at minimum, but probably maybe even longer, based on an agreement that this new model of revenue sharing where, the bigger brands basically there's like an exclusivity bucket of money that goes to the best performing, the biggest brands, that kind of thing. Am I disappointed by my opinion that will happen? Would that disappoint me? Of course. If that were to happen, of course. Because we all saw it this year, Vince. Despite an SEC team not playing in or winning the national championship for a few couple years in a row now, the bias was never more clear. That, first of all, the SEC is getting more teams in. So is the Big Ten. Both teams are getting more in. And what that means is that there's more, even if we're from a revenue standpoint meeting a gap a little bit better in the future, it would still mean, in my opinion, that the outside view from the media, ESPN and the like, would still be it's a lesser brand. And they've proven that in how they've treated the ACC in the postseason. But before, Vince, we get to any of that kind of stuff, I do want to say one other thing to you, Vince.
I'm ready.
Live, returning back to the show. Go ahead and let's bring him on in, Vince. Add him to the show momentarily here. Vince is doing
that. I had a little problem here. Hold on a second.
He is here. I promise I can hear his voice. It's like the omnipotent voice. There he is.
There he is.
The man himself. Rohan on the record. What I love is the look with the pod. It's been a long day.
It's been a day. It's been a long day.
How are you doing? It's been a while.
I'm fantastic. I'm doing real good. Yes, it has been a while. I've missed you all. That doesn't mean I haven't been paying attention. Just didn't want to bore everybody when not a whole lot was happening. And boy, has it been a busy 27 hours.
Yes.
When I posted the show link yesterday, I was telling everybody at the beginning, you messaged me right away and you're like, this is the indicator. Like this is how this is going to move along.
I think it was Monday. When we talked about this.
Yeah. So it's like contract eve. It's contract eve. And as soon as we posted that, sure enough, here it is. and we're on a good streak with that, Doug. And I see you're drinking a little
Mhm.
something tonight. I am also celebrating a bit tonight, just because I am of the opinion that what happened today, I figured was going to happen anyway. So we don't know anything more than we did yesterday. And I'm just celebrating the fact that another thing the puzzle piece has been placed, which means we can move on to things that really matter. What do you think?
Look, I was very hopeful, and I said this before. First off, and remember, I've said from the beginning, I don't have any inside scoop. That's why I was such a perfect fit for your show. No inside information, no connections. I there's a couple people out there jockeying on Twitter to prove who they have better text messages from and who they have better insight from.
It's
I'm
crazy,
just
by the way.
I'm just trying to make sense of the noise. And there are patterns to the noise. There are things that are typical. There are expected outcomes. And that's all I'm interpreting. I'm using my 25 years experience as a lawyer to kind of explain how deals come together and what it looks like as deals come together. Now, I have always said this was a big date because I anticipated that something would be reduced to writing about the FSU Clemson agreement before ESPN moved forward. Now, based on the rumors that we're hearing from David Hale and from Ross Dellinger, it's not inconsistent with my position. It's just not public. I really wish that we had a formal settlement, that we had a formal agreement. That was my hope. But somewhere, somebody in the ACC has reduced to writing and has produced a memorandum to ESPN outlining the basic framework of what they're willing to do to resolve the Clemson Florida State litigation. I believe in my heart of hearts that paper exists somewhere. Now, it's not public. We don't know the details of it. I think we will be underwhelmed by what that agreement is. But yes, my first hope was that ESPN would walk and that would force the ACC's hand. The next best option is ESPN picks up the agreement, but with an understanding that ESPN has exerted pressure or will continue to exert pressure to force the ACC to come to some agreement. But the leverage is gone. Now that the agreement has been executed, the leverage ESPN had is gone. So my position is not inconsistent with what the Big Mountain guys were saying. It is still possible for North Carolina and Clemson and Florida State and NC State to somehow end up as an SEC property down the road. What it does do, though, is it does add a few years of ACC pain to what FSU is going to experience. I've said from the beginning, and you can go back and clip my shows and rewatch my shows with TJ, probably the first time I was on with you all. This was always FSU being in the ACC through 2026. I never once was a believer that even at the best and fastest rate, FSU would be out before then. So if the rumors are true and if they're going to reduce the grant of rights from 2036 down to 2031, and in this case, not necessarily reduce it, that would have been the first choice, but they can eliminate the penalties,
Right.
then that does give FSU the opportunity in 2026, 2027, 2028 to be openly negotiating where they're going next. And TJ did a good job today, and I don't know if you all shared it earlier or not, talking about the disparity of revenue. Even by 2029, we're talking about a $50 million gap between the SEC and the ACC. And I appreciate the ACC stepping up and being willing to sweeten the pot per se or add some additional funds, but we're not talking about a $200 million fund. I can't imagine a scenario where ESPN is pumping an additional $500,000 into the ACC property. The whole reason, the whole advantage for them to extend this contract is the grotesque discount that the ACC negotiated with ESPN back when this was first created.
So they've got a sweet deal with us. Well, us, I say the conference, right? They're paying pennies on the dollar for this product, and rightly so, because of the majority of the properties in the ACC, don't command the type of ratings and viewership that maybe the top 3 or 4 teams do.
Georgia Tech, #1, baby. Georgia Tech, #1 in viewership.
That's right. So, but the deal is like, if they've got that kind of sweet deal, they might have some momentum or some need to pump a little bit more money in to keep Florida State and Clemson and Miami and North Carolina happy-ish for a couple years. But you're right, it's not going to cover whatever it is. It's not going to cover the gap. So the question is, and what I tweeted today was, the numbers matter. What happened today matters absolutely, but really what matters are the numbers behind today. And we don't know what that is yet. If you're talking about getting Florida State and Clemson, another $2 to $3 million a year, that is nothing. It has to really, to move the needle, those numbers have to be closer to probably $25 to $30 million a year. And I don't know that that's possible, even with the success initiatives and the brand fund, which is the new term that was coming out earlier today. There's going to be this new brand fund, which, by the way, everybody, that's what Florida State talked about 2 years ago. Mm-hmm. The brands that bring in the viewership should be gathering more of these funds. I don't even know if that is going to move the needle closer to that, because that is $30 million deficit now. By the time 2030 hits, you're talking about $50 million compared
per
to prime
school
per year.
Right.
So anyway,
one thing I didn't want to skip over because it was a super chat, and I think it's a good opportunity to bring it up now. And position this at Doug. Do you expect our administration will remain silent because we are still in litigation? Great question.
Yes.
Thank you, Daniel, for giving.
That's a very good point. And I saw a lot of people today really upset with FSU leadership. The sky is falling. Nothing for Florida State is different than what it was 24, 48 hours ago. The litigation is continuing. The leadership is not what signed on to this deal. This literally was a unilateral exercise by ESPN to check a box and say, yes, we want to keep the brand for 2036. The question is, what are the settlement negotiations? And that's where I'm frustrated and disappointed. We've talked about this date since August of last year. This is not a surprise. And in general, attorneys do have a bad reputation of waiting until the deadline to start working on stuff and get stuff done. But I would have liked to have seen this as a benchmark moment for them to not only announce this extension, but also explain clearly how Clemson and Florida State are going to be satiated or satisfied in this new agreement. Instead, they just said, we're still working on it. Again, there has to be a framework. There has to be an outline. Now it's just a matter of filling in the details. I don't know if it's going to be weeks. I don't know if it's going to be months. It could still be another year or two. Mm-hmm. But I have hope. My expectation is that we're still working on a compromise, that we're still working on resolving the differences. And I would like to think, I would hope that we have it resolved before we kick off the 2025 season.
Yeah. Let me posit this. And that is that, like you said, there's nothing that's different about the lawsuits. Those are still in play. There may have been, it's not like the ACC could look at ESPN today and say, you know what? We don't want your opt-in. They didn't have a choice. So all this idea about the ACC Board of Presidents, or whatever they call it, having to ratify this thing, I don't believe they had a choice. ESPN has, it's their opt-in. They either opt in or they don't.
Yeah, you were scaling up like the Pac-12.
Yeah, so I think today was about the ACC, and I think Florida State and Clemson are just kind of okay with this. Let the ACC have their day about we're stable. ESPN wants us, and they've said that they've won us, and because of that, they're going to opt in. We don't know all the numbers yet, but that's that. I think there's still something coming from the FSU side and the Clemson side after this kind of settles a little bit, because I think you're right. I don't think ESPN would just opt in if there weren't some understandings in terms of the lawsuits and the dates. Because
I'd go so far as to say assurances. There have to be assurances.
yeah, because that, I mean, they're putting money toward this, so they want some kind of known stability.
Yep.
And maybe that known stability, and this is me, this is what I believe, that known stability is 2031 with the main brands.
Mhm.
After that, probably not. But I don't believe, because somebody's asking in here, are we stuck? Define stuck. If you're saying we have to remain in the ACC and we're going to get, another 10 to 15 million dollars a year because of the success initiatives and the brand fund and whatever else, whatever else they're going to come up with, the bake sale fund, then yes, we're stuck per se. But I don't believe for a moment that Florida State or Clemson or North Carolina or Miami are going to sit in this situation till 2036. It just can't happen.
And remember, we've also amassed a war chest. We've launched litigation with the cash in hand, or at least promises of the cash from certain boosters to do $150 million, $200 million buyout. So if even as part of this deal, they give us $10, $15 million more per year, they reduce the grant of rights from 2036 to 2031. And if the cherry on top is we'll waive the exit fee, will waive the grant of rights beyond 2036, then we can start using that 200 million to offset those gaps. And then, yes, it does become a palatable solution to our frustrations.
Yes.
We can't we can't let our anger and frustration and passion and like vitriol about the incompetence of the league. Like this is why I'm a fan and not the president of Florida State University, right? We can't let those things dictate action. What you just described is like you said, palatable, although it's not delicious. It's just palatable situation until the time comes where Florida State and these other brands can be on the footing that their brand deserves to be on.
Yeah, I thought of this analogy earlier, and I think it makes a lot of sense. So stick with me for this. It's like if you're renting and you feel like you're never going to be able to afford to buy a house, and you feel like it's just not there. And to buy a house, you need, now these days at minimum $300K to buy a decent house. But most of you might even be more. It could be $500K to get where you really want to be. And that sounds awesome because you're living in this terrible 2-bedroom apartment in a really bad area. And you want out so badly, man. You want to just be like, well, listen, maybe we should just go in debt and just finance it all, man, and live house poor, basically, where we don't have any extra money, and but we get the house that we want. And you're like, yeah, but once you have the house, won't you be like really in a bad situation? You're like, yeah, for sure. What happened today is they didn't do that. That's not going to happen anymore. I fully believe that. Meaning we're not going to get out of the ACC ASAP. But also, we're not going to get the hand-me-down where someone, Habitat for Humanity is not going to buy us a house either. So what we've done is we applied for a first-time home buyer's loan. We got to rent a little bit longer because we still need to save up a 5% down payment.
And we're improving our credit score.
And
Two and 10 wasn't great.
That's right.
And even when we buy that house, and it's going to take us 5 years to kind of save them enough to even to do the down payment. And yeah, we're going to have a dumb PMI afterwards, homeowners insurance afterwards. But man, when we get in that new house, we'll be able to afford it because we saved some money. We improved our credit and we are able to finance it in a smart way instead of, going in crazy debt with bad interest rates. That's what's happening right now. So, of course, you want the big house tomorrow. Whenever you want to move somewhere, and I can tell you this for a fact, you want to move the second you decide you're moving, you want to move the next day because you just want to be
Yeah.
done with it.
Yeah. When your heart, and
Yeah.
also known as your significant other, when your heart has decided that that is the place, that has to happen immediately.
Yeah. When you want to book a cruise, it's like, let's book it tonight, right? We'll talk about that a little bit later. But the smart thing is the fiduciary responsibility. Uh, let's say the smart way to spend your money would not be to make that move and go into extreme debt. It would be to take some time. Let's list this. Let's rent. Let's turn in our notice.
Mm-hmm.
3 months notice to the renter. We'll save some money. We'll save up get all that ready to go, and that's what we're doing here. So it's not the answer we all love, but it's the answer that'll get us where we're going. And I take my
The metaphor has run its course. Hey,
yes.
Doug, so we're going to get more into what happened today and what that really means. But I know you also tweeted some stuff about some posts. I'm sorry, about some movement in the lawsuits themselves, right? So I want you to talk about those because people, we haven't had you on in a long time. And I know that's mainly because there hasn't been a lot of movement. So let us know what's been happening recently with the lawsuits.
Well, I'm going to take your movement and put it in quotation marks
Yeah.
because this is movement, much like a glacier moves over time. But yesterday, yes, I did put out a series of tweets, or at least a thread anyway, talking about the ACC's brief to the Florida Supreme Court on the issue of Judge Cooper's decision to claim that the first filed lawsuit in North Carolina does not, in fact, carry priority, and that as a result, the Florida case can continue to move forward. So the ACC is now accusing Judge Cooper of creating a constitutional crisis and challenging the rules of federalism and the expectation that each state will respect decisions from other states. So they've very much blown this out of proportion. But nevertheless, they're asking the Florida Supreme Court to step in, arrest, figuratively, stop the Florida suit from moving forward, and returning the action to North Carolina, where nothing has happened because North Carolina's Supreme Court is evaluating whether or not to take on the case. So the next steps in Florida would be FSU gets a chance to file a reply brief in about 30 days. And then the Florida Supreme Court can decide, do we want to take up this case or not? So the first thing the Florida Supreme Court could do is just say, we're not interested. The lower courts have decided this matter correctly. We're going to let the case continue to proceed. The alternative and less likely option is that the Florida Supreme Court wants to get involved and then schedules oral arguments. So that's going to be April, May even. And then both parties will get a chance to present their case in front of the Florida Supreme Court, at which point the Florida Supreme Court will then sit on the case for another 90 days or 120 days and render some kind of opinion in September, October, either confirming that Florida is the proper place for this case to move forward, that Judge Cooper was correct, or agreeing with the ACC that this matter should continue to move forward in North Carolina. The bottom line is nothing's happening, nothing's going to happen. It's going to be months before anything more doesn't happen. And even then, we're at the beginning stages of discovery where it's going to be a year-long process for discovery. It's 2026 before we have any kind of trial scheduled. It's going to be weeks, if not months, of trial work. It's then going to be a decision by a judge at the end of 2026 or beginning of 2027, which then will get appealed. This case is not going to be heard on the merits by any court and have any reasonable judicial opinion rendered as to who might be right. This case will settle. I hope it settles in the next 8 weeks. It may be the next 8 months, but it will be long before any judge rules on any substantive issues.
Editorial comment.
Yes.
As a lawyer, I'm an impatient man, but as a lawyer, I imagine you have to just understand and want to, maybe when you were a younger lawyer, you wanted things to move quicker. But as you've grown and aged and the wisdom has grown on you, you realize that this stuff just takes a long time. I imagine that's just grown on you both as a lawyer and as a father. This stuff
The
is going
the
through some.
first 5 jobs that I was at doing litigation work, I never saw a single case come to any kind of conclusion, not even in settlement. I mean, it's just, they take forever. It's a reason why I really love the criminal practice. My ADHD brain loves jumping in and jumping out and getting stuff done and
Mhm.
figuring things out and getting stuff figured out. Workers' comp, even. It is litigation, but it's law light. Cases take 6 months to a year for the vast majority. The personal injury stuff just drags on
Mm.
and on. I mean, there are times where we've got a settlement. We've settled the case. We figured it out. We've come to an agreement, and it still takes 4 months to get paid on it, just because the paperwork and the approval of the documents and getting the court orders, and it's just it's a tough way to make money. So when they
If
start
you
talking
are a
about tort reform, I
Yeah,
want to
if
punch
you
them in the
oh boy,
nuts.
yeah. If you are a microwave generation type of person, do not get into the legal field. Ryan, you want to pull the super chat up?
Yeah, absolutely. Elijah Barrera, super chat extraordinaire. Is Michael Alford asking the board of governors to change the laws to allow institutional support for athletics revenue sharing? Is it feasible? Sounds like desperation.
I do understand there was a meeting in Jacksonville, and I do understand that the topic of schools paying the athletes directly did come up. Um, they're going to have to figure something out, because I don't even know that the House settlement is going to go through. I still struggle to understand how they're going to encumber or subject an eighth grader today to some kind of agreement that the current parties reach that's going to affect him or her in 2030. That's where there's legally a disconnect from what we're trying to accomplish and what we legally can accomplish. You don't union once you become a player. We don't have that in amateurism. We're using that as a lighter and lighter used term for our college athletes. But that's the mechanism that generally makes the NFL players subject to the rules and regulations of contract negotiations. How are we going to apply that to amateurs when they're currently in eighth grade?
Yeah, I mean, I will also say that Michael Alford talking about this and allowing institutions to work on behalf of the students and being able to pay through the collectives and all this other stuff. It's not just a Florida problem. Like, this is nationwide, and so we are in a really, really strange time. And with the House settlement and all these other things, I mean, there's no telling what this thing is going to look like when it's all said and done. I did see some reports either earlier today or yesterday that one of the athletic conferences is opting in to the House settlement.
Mm-hmm.
So there are already conferences that are deciding and opting in. So, I mean, there is, or at least preparing to opt in, provided it goes through,
Mm-hmm.
right? So there's a lot of change on the horizon. So it's not just Michael Alford. So don't just think, I know we always look at it from the glasses we wear, but it's not just Florida State. It's across the board.
What I would caution people and tell people, and I'll help answer Al's question in a second. you've got to be patient in this process. You either are a college football fan or you're not a college football fan. And I promise you, for the 99.9% of us that are on Twitter, we have no authority, we have no control, we can't change or shape what is happening. Be patient. And by 2030, you either will be a college football fan or you won't be a college football fan. We
Indeed.
are going to go through further realignments. We are going to go through further overhauls. We've still got to figure out if we're going to even have an NCAA. Those are all questions that will be answered in the next 5 years, not today, not next year. And when the dust settles in 2031, FSU will either be on its way to the SEC, on its way to the Big Ten, on its way to the Big 12, still a part of the ACC, or the ACC will have imploded and we're independent. And I don't know which one of those things will be. But you
I
either
don't.
are going to be a season ticket holder, or you're not going to be a season ticket holder.
Yeah, and the point you bring up there, Doug, is when you said the SEC and the Big Ten, everybody that's listening right now was like, yeah, okay. But then when you said Big 12 or ACC, people are like, whoa, wait a minute. But we do not know right now what 2030 and 2031 are going to look like. It could be at that time that that these other leagues are on a more equal footing because of all the changes that are happening. So,
Hmm.
we're looking at it from a temporal spot right now. Right now the ACC is not great. We do not like being in here for many reasons,
I don't know.
but we do
SMU,
not.
you know?
Well, but we do not know what it's going to look like in those years. So, it's I don't want to throw anything out. My fandom wants me to say F the ACC. They've never done much in terms of promoting Florida State as the 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 bell cow for the league for decades. And then when finally Florida State, has some down years, they're quick to talk about that, right? But really, we need to step back from that fandom a little bit and understand that we do not know what 2030, 2031 is going to look like. So we need to be open to that.
And look, I would love to go back and change history too. I'm in the Almighty Finn camp as well. I'd love it if we could go back and whisper in Bobby's ear. It really is okay to join the SEC. I promise. I'd even sacrifice two of the three national championships to have been in the SEC because I've said it all along. As a season ticket holder, I mean, granted, we need about 15 more hotels in town, but as a season ticket holder, I'd rather watch Arkansas, Ole Miss,
Yep.
Alabama, and those teams come to Doak every year than what we've had in the ACC, what we might have in the Big Ten. I'll suck it up and be happy for
Yep.
Penn State every fourth year and be happy for, whoever else we can, Michigan every fourth year. But, it's Vince and I picked really good years to be in the Marching Chiefs, and we can lament where things stand today. We're not in control. You can
Yeah. So
you choose to be happy. Choose to be happy.
I'm seeing some comments here in the chat. It's like, so we're stuck then, and this is so disappointing to hear. And I see those comments, but what I want to get across today on this show, and I think is the point of the show tonight. A lot of the points of the show tonight is what happened today does not change what we thought yesterday or the day before until we know the numbers of this ESPN decision to opt in. ESPN just didn't opt in because they just checked the box to opt in. They had to have assurances to
Unsubscribe.
be able to do this, right? In my opinion, they had to know that there was some stability in terms of the conference. And in order for there to be stability in terms of the conference, Florida State and Clemson had to have some kind of concession in terms of their concerns. So until we know that, again, take your ACC anger aside, right? To me, and I hate to say this because I love college football. unfortunately, right now, it's all about the resources to be able to compete.
It's an arms race.
It's an arms race. So if that arms race means that we're in the ACC and we're able to do that for a couple more years until, these renegotiated TV contracts come up, then I only care about Florida State and their ability to do what they need to do. If that means being in the ACC till 2030, and the administration has gone through those things and realized that, okay, whatever they proposed, we can make that work. Okay, then make it work.
Yeah.
Then make it work, and let's move forward.
Yeah, let me talk to my FSU brethren. Listen, come in here nice and close, my friends.
Fireside
FSU
chat with Ryan.
FSU fans, Tallahassee, Leon. Okay, you got to hear me out on this one. We're gonna be okay. We're gonna be okay. But here's what we need to do. Whether we want to hear it or not, we can talk how bad of a conference ACC is. We were 2-10 in the ACC last year. So my biggest concern, of course, I want to be out of the ACC. I want to do it as quick as possible. Is it likely? No. But of course I do. But at the end of the day, my number one focus in the next year, 2 years, 3 years is to kick this conference ass. That should be our concern. Because right now, it would be foolish to say that FSU going 2-10 didn't leverage wise hurt a little bit. It would be foolish. If we had gone out and gone to the playoff and even won maybe a play, not even the national championship, won a playoff game, won the conference, leverage wise, you could go the ACC and the ESPN. ACC could say, "Hey, listen, we got a national, two national brands. We had SMU, we had Florida State in the playoffs. Maybe won a game. Let's say Florida State won a game. God forbid we played in a national championship, right, or anything like that. If we're doing what we're supposed to be doing, no matter when it happens, it'll make it easier from a desirability standpoint. I know we still pulled numbers this year, but it wasn't fun numbers. It wasn't the numbers we want, right? We don't want people watching us at 8 p.m., watching us get our butts handed to us by Wake Forest, okay? So let's focus on the good. Let's take care of business in this conference, this sorry-ass conference we're in right now, and then let's focus on what's next. That's my soapbox. We got to fix ourselves first.
You got to do both. You got to do both. The team has to perform, and the people that are making these decisions have to do the right things in terms of the finances and the correct alignment, whether it's athletically or academically, right? Which I believe we are all in agreement that academically, Florida State University is doing what it needs to do to get to where it needs to go. I mean, we hear about this all the time. So it's really a combination of all of that. But I don't disagree with you, Ryan, that we didn't do ourselves any favors with crap in the bed in 2024.
After talking a whole lot.
That was you talking. I didn't talk.
I mean,
those Kirk Herbstreit suck chants in Ireland don't quite hit the same.
No, they do not. But I still have the clown noses, Doug.
Good.
I have them, and they've recently, expanded to the full clown nose because they were compressed in the bag that they came in. They finally gotten to full decompression. They're ready to go.
Now, the last question I want to ask you, Doug, since I think we covered the basis of what's happening right now. Just off the top rope, because we're going to roll into this after you are done here. What do you think about the schedule? What are you looking forward to, my friend? What are you looking forward to?
The debate right now is, do I make up the cost of my Champions Club tickets with selling my Alabama tickets just because of how crazy the prices are? Mm-hmm. The schedule itself, I honestly have not taken a deep dive into it. I haven't looked much beyond it. I think it's a joke that Miami gets to go all the way to October before they have their first conference game.
It's weird, right?
But I'm in a weird spot. I'm probably like a lot of FSU fans right now. I don't want to hear about recruiting. I don't want to hear about the coaches' interviews. I don't want to hear how good the players are looking out on the field because we were fed those lines last year and then we got kicked in the nuts. What I want to see is to line up against Alabama. I think it can be a competitive game. I think we can win. I think that we have a good quarterback and some good receivers and an improved line, but I want to see it. I don't want to read 15 articles on how great, the drills have been at preseason camp. I'm sick of it. When Jameis Winston, I listened to every minute of every word of everything he said in every press conference he ever did. And you eat up the articles and I really think our beat, I don't put our beat in the sewer and trash like some other fans do. I think you had a bad offense going up against a bad defense and they both looked pretty good at times. And we didn't realize just how bad it was. And then we had a perfect storm. I don't think it was widely publicized, but now that the season's over, I think it's okay to talk about it. But between DJU getting injured in the last scrimmage, him not being able to run, the offensive line, being banged up, but also underperforming, and the receivers not stepping up. One of our receivers went down with a season-ending injury in the scrimmage as well. It was a perfect storm. A lot of shit all went wrong at the same time, and we ended up with what we ended up with. I still think I've seen worse. I still think we have performed worse in recent memory. And I think that the good news is that it's a fairly easy and succinct turnaround, especially in this era of the NIL. And I think what everybody is going to have to come to terms with is there are no more dynasties. Nobody is stacking a three deep roster anymore. That's a bygone era of college football that the NIL era has eliminated. And you're going to have Texas Tech as a top 10 team next year because they went out and bought a whole bunch of players. And it's going to be even more important that you have a caring, charismatic, players type coach that can also execute at a high level. And frankly, I think FSU has done a sufficient job of identifying the problems, and I think they have done a good job of hiring to their problems that they had last year. And I think we're going to have a competitive, if not victorious, game against Alabama. But until I see it, I don't care what people say.
So, Doug, as bad as last year was, and there was a lot of bad, Dublin was not bad. And I know not everybody didn't get to go. So, game aside, Dublin was an experience of a lifetime, and I loved spending time there. But we can talk about. I want to talk about that for years. Going to that game. But that to me was almost like the epitome of the year. Like everything else after that was like, what are we even doing? So when you say I don't want to hear about this, and I'm going to read the reports. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah, we do a show.
I'm not going to take.
You have a show.
I'm not going to take much stock in the reports. We're in the show me mode, and that first game is no joke. Alabama's got its own problems, right?
Yeah.
They've got their own problems. Don't think this is the Alabama of old. It's not, and this is not the college football of old.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of triggered big fan bases in the coming years.
There is an absolute true statement that Florida State could come out of that game victorious. There's no doubt about it. But I am not going to. I'm not going to lean into any of that. I'm going to go to that game. I'm going to enjoy it.
Vince is.
But I am not going to buy your Champions Club tickets.
Vince has gone full Stephen A. here. He's like, I'm here to tell you right now, we don't care. That's what Vince just said about all the reports.
Everybody,
Go ahead.
Go ahead. I was going to say, everybody, by the way, we got a lot of people watching this show tonight. Welcome to Garnet Old. And I know a lot of people are watching tonight because of what happened today. And I appreciate that. But we would love for you to come back. Go on YouTube, like and subscribe. that really helps the show out a lot. Doug is on often, and the more legal stuff that happens, Doug is on more often. But Doug will also be on a little bit during the baseball season, because really, Doug's true love is FSU baseball.
And it's about to get fun.
It's going to win a national championship at Florida State.
Someday, brother.
It's happening.
It's a good roster.
My departing thought before I leave is, look, I'm a natural optimist. I'm not with Almighty Finn. I don't think it's going to be 40 years before FSU is back on top. But we're not wrong to claim the disparity in income does provide an existential threat to the football program. So I generally believe we're going to come out of this okay. I generally believe even at a disproportionate payout for 3 or 4 years, we can recover. I generally believe in our leadership and Mike Alford and President McCullough and Mike Norvell. I think that, yes, the snub hurt. Yes, the snub kept him from being able to push. Yes, we had some players that overplayed their NIL hand and hamstrung our budget. I think that this is the right group to make a turnaround and a quick turnaround. And I'm seeing 8 or 9 wins in the coming season. And it's very simple. I'm not going to be upset if we crap the bed again and have 4 wins. We're just going to make changes. But yeah. I do believe, I have hope, I have an expectation that there is success in the very near future for Florida State.
Optimism is what we all need to cling to. Mm-hmm. And I'm that way too, Doug. You've known me for a really long time. I'm very optimistic.
Yes,
sir. I can be angry about the things that have happened, but I can also understand that because of the history of Florida State and the fact that Florida State has done more with less for almost its whole existence, right? But this is a different kind of less. So that is an existential crisis for sure. That's why I tell everybody that there is no way that Florida State is going to be at a $50 million deficit. They're not going to let that happen. It's just not going to happen. Whatever it takes, they are going to make whatever changes are necessary to make sure they're not going to live in that kind of quagmire.
Salud.
Salud, brother.
It's all the next time. Take care.
Absolutely.
And we're back. Vince, Rohan, wow. What a pleasure.
Absolutely.
The only thing I wish I got to ask him about before he headed out was the most important piece of news that happened this week. It's not the lawsuit. It's not the agreements, Vince. It's Jameis Winston is going to be part of the broadcast for the Super Bowl. I mean, that's breaking news, and I'll watch the Super Bowl just to see Jameis Winston. That's what I'll do.
If you want some smiles, and I know most people that are watching this show right now, even the haters, probably even the rivals, you got to follow Jameis just for the sheer entertainment of it all. Mm-hmm. Whether if you were part of that contingent that was a little crazy about what happened, the man is a walking soundbite.
Yeah,
and it's just so good. Quick update here: Florida State women's basketball has defeated Boston College 104-80. The women's basketball team scores in the triple digits quite often. So
very nice.
And I was going to say, like, I want to remind people, like I mentioned a little bit ago, it's been lean in the YouTube realm lately. So those of you that are here watching tonight, we really appreciate you. There's a bunch of people, 226 people watching on X. That is fantastic. Jump over to YouTube, find the show and like it.
Yeah.
That
real quick.
Really helps. That really helps.
Touching back on James real quick, Vince.
Yeah.
And I'm a huge fan. I always have been. Right? No one's turned around an image like Jameis Winston has for the entire world in the last couple of years. Like, if you were to ask people's general opinion, not Florida State fans in 2018, their opinion of Jameis Winston much different than today. Which I'm so happy that people get to see who he is. But Vince, are you with me that he might have a better after football broadcasting career ahead of him than he ever did as a NFL quarterback?
There is no doubt. So,
Yeah.
he is, he set records as an NFL quarterback as a rookie, right? And we can all joke about, the interception, the touchdown, but he set records,
Mhm.
right? And he has the reasons why he was never a starter in Cleveland, whatever. I don't know about all that. But what I do know is he's a team guy. He's uber talented with even the things that kind of hold him back a little bit, but he's a personality, and he's a positive personality, and good Lord knows we need more positive personalities in our life these days.
Man,
Positivity.
give me that guy hosting a show on the ACC network. How
Yeah.
fun would that be?
Yeah, and even it's been funny to kind of see college rivals, when Jameis has maybe been on their pro team,
Yeah.
kind of turn the corner on that,
Oh yeah. Man, it's
right?
fun.
So Ryan, we haven't spent much time talking through or kind of shouting out people in the chat. Can you do that?
Man, we got a lot.
We got a
I wish
lot.
there was a filter. I wish that it would be able to give you a list of just names, like for one person each. But I'm just gonna Sean Wells.
Let's go through it because we need to shout them out because
Yeah.
this has been an
Nick,
amazing show.
Nick Snyder, R. Wilmer, Ich bin ein Blitzkriger, Sean Wallace.
Ich bin ein.
Yeah, Ich bin CHJ 229, Almighty Finn. Oh man, there's so many here. David Hall, not Hale, not to confuse David Hall. We already talked. We mentioned a few earlier in the show. Man, our fans, they show up even in the off season.
They
Some of these
do.
people I've been here every show, even when we had literally. I'm not even being facetious. Zero to talk about. You know what we will have to talk about though? We have a big show next week, guys. Let me give you a little scoop.
Yeah, let's give them a little scoop right now on what next week's show is going to be,
Yeah.
because it's going to be a little out of the ordinary, and it's going to be
Can I give the people a preview, Vince?
You can if you're ready,
Right.
but remember last time you tried to do that, the audio went out.
This is what you're going to see, ladies and gentlemen.
I don't know if they want to see that.
Big Papa East is going to be reporting live from my cruise ship in the middle of the Caribbean. I'm
Yeah.
going to end the show. Who knows? Maybe I'll have a robe on. Maybe I'll have a hula, what do you call it? A lei?
Yeah, you may not need the sweater that you have on right now.
Yeah, I forgot to take it off. But listen, I'm proud of my mane, Vince. So I just wanted to give people, if there's no other reason to join the Garnet Old show next week, I just gave you one, brother. You get to see the gun show.
So, as a show of hands, and people can't raise their hands necessarily, but we got quite a few people watching tonight. Who's watching for the first time? Let us know who's watching for the first time. And you're probably thinking, these guys are ridiculous. Yeah, we're fans. We're fans, and we love the team, and we want to talk about the team. And there's going to be some ridiculousness on this show. So welcome. If you're new to the show tonight, welcome to the show. Ryan and I do a show, at least one show every week on Thursdays at 7 p.m. It is primarily focused on Florida State University athletics, but we cover college football in general, and we cover other Florida State athletics as well as the Florida State University Marching Chiefs because of my background.
Yeah, you can also follow my X profile at Big Papa East.
Yeah.
And at VC Noel on X.
Yeah, and that's it's something that Here's the deal. Ryan and I both have other jobs, right? So this YouTube thing is just a passion. We just love it. Love college football, love the Noles. This is a passion, and we love talking to people about it. But with a 2-10 season, it's been a little light. So I want to welcome a bunch of people that maybe have not been here before. And
Shout out that comment, Vince.
yeah, join the Garnet Old family. We even talk about rivals sometimes, and we don't always do it in a negative way, by the way. So we are not necessarily, your typical show.
Definitely not. I proved that in the last 5 minutes. But here, guys, I promise you'll have me live from the cruise ship. Join Vince next Thursday at 7. So tune in. It's been another great show, Vince. No matter what, screw ESPN. No inside info, no contacts, no problem. And
people, March 5th. Yeah, March 5th is the Great Give. Florida State University Great Give. We're talking about money a lot tonight. Money moves the needle. It's unfortunate that it's the world we live in, but it is the world we live in. If you want Florida State University to achieve at the levels they need to achieve, whatever your budget can allow, make a consideration to do that. But also, send Chiefs all the damn time. And we're not talking about the Kansas City Chiefs. We're talking about the Marching Chiefs. Send the Marching Chiefs all the damn time. There is a coaches club that you can contribute to that'll make sure the Marching Chiefs are at every away game. And those kids deserve to be there. And you deserve to hear the war chant from the originators at every away game. Go Noles.
Go Noles.